Hello my darlings, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be finishing the fanfiction reading, Billfold, A Touching Story, by Pastel_Writes 101 on Wattpad. Just a couple of things before I get into this video. I'm so sorry it's taking a little bit longer for this to, come out to the public. I didn't realize how long the ending was, so filming and editing has taken a lot longer than it usually does. You're more than welcome to comment and recommend a fanfiction you would like me to read next time. And if you would like to read along with me, the link to the fanfiction will be down in the description. Also, you guys, just as a disclaimer, this video is the safe for work version. I have a second version of this video age restricted on my channel because the majority of the last chapter is inappropriate. However, you are more than able to go to the link in the description and read it for yourself. I just can't have it up on YouTube for, reasons. So if you can't access the other video, I would recommend going to that one instead because it's the same thing, just, more of the last chapter. So without further ado, let's get started. Chapter 6. Please. Please, Bill, come on, give it back. Say it nicely, Bill replied, grabbing Ford's chin. Bill, can I please have my paper pad back? He said, looking up at him, since Bill was still sitting on the desk. Again, Bill moved closer. Please, Bill. Ford felt his knees weaken and butterflies in his stomach. Bill handed it back and giggled. There you go. He hopped down and headed towards the bathroom to get changed again. Ford couldn't believe what happened. He lost sleep over it. And when he finally did go back to sleep, he had a dream about Bill. Normally he hated dreams and didn't have them often. Always nightmares. But this one, Bill had him pinned down and had been kissing him on his neck, moving down. Just before he woke up again. Ford was panting and sat up, seeing that Bill was laying next to him asleep. He laid back down and stared at the ceiling. It took another hour of just laying there, but he did eventually go back to sleep. Ford, come on, what's the matter? Why are you so shy? Bill held him by the throat and kissed him. Just relax, you're in good hands. His eyes opened. It was morning. Good morning, Ford. How was your sleep? Bill stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. You made a lot of noise, and mumbled some as well. Bill knew exactly what the dreams were about. He even had a hand in them, but he wasn't going to spoil that for Ford. He loved watching him pretend not to be attracted. It was fine. Is that coffee? He asked while Bill handed him the cup. Yes, it is. Yours is black, as always. Thanks, Bill. Should we get to work? Oh, come on. Let us take a break for today. You've worked yourself too hard. You're sweating right now. So why don't we go sit on the couch and watch some mindless TV? Bill walked out into the living room. Ford pulled the blanket off and looked down. Bill, I'll join you in a minute. I'm going to hop in the shower. Ford had a problem, and it was in his pants. He snuck off into the bathroom and shut the door, turning on the water and taking off his clothes. Ford thought about the dreams, trying to remember the feeling of it. Bill walked back into the bedroom and snuck up to the door, putting his ear up to it. Wow, Ford. Looks like those dreams did have an impact, Bill whispered to himself. Last night, the way Bill looked at him and acted was all new, or at least it felt like it was. Bill heard what sounded like a moan and snuck around for a few moments, then left once the water stopped. Bill walked into the kitchen and poured himself a cup of tea, since he chugged the coffee from before. "How was your shower?" Bill turned around, watching Ford dry his hair with a towel. "Good, good. I got this new turtleneck. What do you think?" "Red looks good on you. You should wear that with your black coat next time you go out." Bill sat down at the table. "Well, thank you, and I will." Ford felt confident while he spoke, trying to pretend like the last 20 minutes in the shower had never happened. But if Bill didn't know, then no harm, no foul, right? That would have been true if Bill hadn't been connected to Ford's mind. And nosy. "So you just want to watch TV?" Ford sat on the couch. "Why not?" Bill asked. "Because it's mindless. I don't know, I just feel like I should be doing more," Ford sighed. "You are doing something. You're sitting with me, and I'll always keep things interesting, won't I?" Bill sat next to him. "Okay, fine, but I get to ask you questions." Fine." Bill shrugged and turned on the TV. "So, last night, about your body. It can do everything a normal human does, right? So, react to certain things, have fluids, have arousal?" Ford stayed looking at Bill. "I suppose so. I never really checked if I could get hard." "Oh, well, yes, that is what I meant. Yes, I can use it for its intended purpose." Bill smirked and looked over at him. "Now, why specifically that question, Sixer?" Ford stopped talking. Not because he didn't have anything to say, but because when he tried to talk, nothing came out. "Do you want to see it when it does that? Or are you just curious?" Bill turned his body fully towards Ford and leaned in. "Cat caught your tongue, Sixer?" I was wondering, of course, because I have heard of demons possessing people, but never having their own physical form. It's just..." "No need to over-explain, darling. I understand." You do?" Ford could feel his palms become sweaty, and the butterflies once again were in his stomach, just like the night before. "Why so shy, Sixer? If I were you, I'd be quick to examine me too. Maybe you gotta get a closer look to find out what's going on with me." "Closer... how?" Ford let Bill pull him back in close, practically on top of him. "This close, Stanford. So why don't you take a look? I'm not shy about being naked again if that's what you want. I'm also not against you feeling my skin just to see how close it feels to real humans." Bill let go of him, but Ford stayed in place. Chapter 7. Tell me. "Bill, I think we should go back to my study and talk more. I'd love to learn about your human form, but I don't need to get that close. I don't want to invade your..." Ford started. Think. Talk. You think too hard for a human. Stanford, why don't you want to explore my possibilities? Are you nervous? Afraid about finding something out about yourself?" Bill had a certain tone that he had the night before that surprised Ford. "Unless there's something you won't admit to me. Stanford, we're already so close. Why would you hide anything?" Bill pulled Ford close. "Tell me what's on your mind, please." Bill added on that last part, knowing he was coming off a bit intimidating. "I had a dream of you. It was different than what I'm used to, and I've never felt anything like it. I can't go further, invading your personal space. I'm not going to destroy the friendship we have now over some dream." Ford looked up at him. His eyes seemed a bit watery, like he was embarrassed and wanted to cry, but couldn't. "It was a fantasy. A fantasy you want, don't you?" Bill narrowed his eyes. "Maybe, I don't know." Ford answered, glancing away. Do you know it? Did you make it? I may have had a hand in it, Bill answered nonchalantly. What? Ford whisper yelled. And that's making you question? Bill smirked. You're so cute, Ford. It makes me feel, well, what do you humans call it? Right. Turned the fuck on. Bill pulled him even closer. The way you look staring up at me, the way you're holding yourself, it makes me feel like no one ever has. Ford felt weak in his grasp. Whatever was about to happen, he was going to let it because, to be honest, he liked it. You feel turned on? He asked in disbelief. That's the word, isn't it? It's such a fun term. You humans love partaking in vulgar activities. You take so much time in pleasuring yourselves that you don't even have a second thought about it. Bill's strings wrapped around Ford's throat slowly. So slow, he didn't even feel them at first. They would squeeze for a few moments before releasing. It made Ford slightly lightheaded, but pleasingly, as if he had just gotten high. You dig your nose into that journal day in and day out, so instead of you glancing at me, why don't I give you a lesson in real life, right here and now, that'll change how you see everything. Ford felt himself getting sweaty. He was powerless against Bill, but he wanted it to be like that. Have you done this before? Ford asked, feeling like Bill had a hell of a lot of experience considering the way he spoke and held himself and acted. It screamed that he had a huge amount of prior knowledge. No more questions. I only have one for you. Do you trust me? Bill smiled wide and grabbed Ford by the back of his hair, softly, but hard enough to get a reaction. Answer me. Yes, Bill, I do. Ford tried to compose himself. He let out a soft groan while Bill grabbed him like that. He certainly wasn't expecting it. I trust you. Good. Then no more questions. I'll tell you to do something. You do it. Got it? Be a good boy. Bill giggled softly, hearing himself. Wow. I saw that humans speak like this. I get the appeal now. His eyes flashed red as he got up, pulling Ford onto his feet and using his strings as some form of a leash while he led him to the bedroom. Bill's strings disappeared, and he pushed Stanford onto the bed, crawling in from between his legs. There he was, close enough to kiss him, and he spoke with a breathy voice. Are you ready? Ford nodded softly and pulled Bill in, kissing him hard and passionately. Bill ran a hand through the man's hair and grabbed it, tilting his head to the side, moving down, and kissing his neck enough to leave noticeable hickeys that would definitely be noticed if he left the house. Bill, I think you're going to love the next part, Stanford. Bill pulled off the robe and opened up the belt on Stanford's pants, pulling it out and throwing it across the room. Ford couldn't look away. His gaze locked onto Bill while he tugged at the bottom of the zipper, pulling his pants down and getting rid of them as well. Chapter 8. It's Unreal. Ford, before I continue, I'll only go as far as you let me. Do you trust me? Stanford took a moment to answer, not because he was unsure, but because he couldn't stop staring at Bill's now exposed body. He took a breath and gulped. I trust you, Bill. Bill smiled. If you want me to stop at any point, let me know. He traced the waistband of Ford's boxers and locked eyes with Ford, watching him become squirmy. Even before Bill was going to do anything, he couldn't stay still. So Bill thought of the perfect way to keep him from moving. Slowly, his strings appeared once again, and this time wrapped around the man's arms and waist, keeping them pinned down. "Stay still for me, baby." He smirked and pulled out his boxers, bringing them down to his knees, and then going down to his ankles and throwing them off to the side. Ford broke gaze just for a moment and looked up at the ceiling. His cheeks felt hot, and he was now noticing how loud his breathing was. It was like he ran from the shack to the diner, and although he thought it was obnoxious, Bill found it so incredibly sexy. "Come on, Sixer, don't feel embarrassed." Bill stood on his knees, using his strings to make Ford look at him. And then they kissed for a really long time. A lot. For a while. "Ford, you think too much." Bill got back up, sitting on top of Ford again, leaning in closer with each passing moment. Ford shook his head slightly. "Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware that you could hear me." He glanced around the room, but not looking at Bill because he was trying to distract himself. "Maybe I have prior education, but what does that matter to you?" Bill questioned. Now he was trying to pry information, whether Ford wanted to answer or not. "Do you have something you want to say, Sixer? I've seen your mind wander multiple times tonight. There must be something." Bill was now inches away from his face. He knew Ford had a hard time lying, especially when the eye contact was so strong. I think this is going much beyond a friendship." Of course, that was obvious. But it also wasn't. It was the type of thing Ford had a hard time saying out loud. "Beyond? What do you mean?" Bill asked while he sat up. I think what I'm trying to say is that this isn't just for the journal anymore, is it? Stanford felt time slow down. Every passing second felt like a century waiting for Bill's reaction. "Stanford, are you implying what I think you're implying?" Bill had a mixed emotional look on his face. Ford couldn't tell if he was happy, mad, or uncomfortable. It seemed like the latter. "I feel like I might have just ruined this whole experience by pushing it too far. Don't say you're sorry." Bill covered Ford's mouth with his hand. "Please don't say sorry." Stanford thought he was sweating before, but holy hell. He was more nervous than when he hunted down monsters. "Stanford, are you trying to tell me that you feel love for someone like me?" Bill dropped his hand from Stanford's mouth. "Someone like you? Bill, you have no idea how important you are." He sat up. "So it's true then?" Bill made eye contact once again. He wasn't smiling. He looked nervous, and Ford thought he was disappointed. Stanford nodded and sighed. "Listen, let's just keep going. We can talk all about this after, I promise. I don't want to take away from your research or disrupt what we have going on right now." Bill moved off and opened Ford's legs, moving up between them. He adopted a smile, but Ford could tell behind all of it was that nervousness he exhibited moments earlier. And then they started doing that kissing thing again. Some more, and then, until something else happened. Bill pulled out slowly and lay next to him, taking in a huge breath, then swiping the hair out of his face again while sighing. Ford looked over and smiled, but it faded after Bill caught his breath and sat up, shakily reached to the floor for his robe. Was that it? Bill, he sat, pulling on his robe. What are you doing? Bill reluctantly sat back down. He thought he was going to be able to sleep on the couch and not speak about the talk from earlier. Fine. He paused. I'm sorry, that was rude. What do you need, Stanford? He tried to smile, but it was barely visible. What you said before all this, and how you thought someone like me couldn't like something like you. Talk to me about it. You see me more than just a muse. Bill wasn't asking. He was telling Ford this. Yes. I'm sorry if that's off-putting to you. Ford looked down and cleaned away the sweat from his glasses. Bill, please say something. He couldn't stand the silence exchanged between them. But, just as it felt hopeless, Bill spoke, and it sounded like he was trying to hide his voice breaking. God, I'm not supposed to be saying any of this. I was just supposed to stay on course. And you are so goddamn important. Bill felt his guard slip down, and he looked over at Ford, who rested his hand over the top of Bill's. You're not wrong. This was more than just for your stupid book. I felt something. But you're a human. Bill got up and started walking towards the door, tying up his robe. Stanford grabbed him by his hips and spun him around, kissing him passionately. Bill's hands were up in surprise, but they fell, embracing Ford tight and closing his eyes. Ford pulled him back to bed, still mid-kiss, and Bill followed. Ford broke the kiss and pulled him down, cuddling up to his side. Who cares if I'm human? Let's figure that new anomaly tomorrow. Because right now, you are here, and I'm not going anywhere. He announced, closed his eyes. Bill smiled softly and wrapped his arm around Stanford. You're right. That's tomorrow's problem. And that's where it ends. My lovelies, my darlings, that's how it ends. I'd like to apologize for how long this video took to come out. I moved in the middle of this series, and this last chapter here, as you can tell, is very, very long compared to the other chapters, so it took much longer to film. Up next, I will be reading a Zader fanfiction as requested to me, and I also have a couple animatics coming out, so I do have videos planned. They might just take a little while to come out, but don't worry, they are in the works. As of right now, you've finished Billfold, A Touching Story. As always, don't forget to drink water and love yourselves because I love you. Goodbye, darlings.